Andy Staples, our good buddy, covers college football for On3 Sports. He has recently attended the Miami-Florida game, Texas-Michigan, Alabama-Wisconsin, and he joins us on the program. For some reason, now I'm excited about Fresno State and UNLV. What do you think there, Andy?
I wonder how many people knew this game was happening, knew what time it was happening, knew what channel it was going to be on before UNLV's quarterback decided to dip out in the middle of the week this week as his 3-0 team prepares for its conference opener. Dan, it's one of the strangest things I've ever seen. We kind of knew something like this was going to happen eventually. Still, when it came, it was like, whoa, what? He's done? That's it?
Okay, but how did we get here with a player leaves Holy Cross? He says he's promised $100,000 by an assistant coach. There's no paper trail. You're not supposed to entice a recruit with money if you're on the coaching staff. The collective.
Oh, no, you can now.
Oh, you can. Okay, so he said that he didn't entice him with money. So how do you prove any of this?
You don't,
disprove?
And that's the craziest part. And so one of the things when all these NIL deals blow up, when there's a bad NIL deal that blows up, you can usually find blame on every side. You can usually find a lot of stupidity everywhere. And in this particular case, so if you have an assistant coach promising X dollars, the family needs to understand, but more importantly, the agent representing the family who works for a big agency, by the way, needs to understand, well, the coach is not exactly authorized to do that because he's not the one who'd be paying it. The collective is who's paying it. So if that dollar figure is thrown out there, the first call you should make is to the collective to say, hey, is this money here? Is this accurate? Because if it is, we have a lot to talk about. But they didn't do that. And like you heard the agent's boss say, well, he wasn't allowed to sign a contract with the collective before he enrolled. Okay. Apparently the entire agency missed the giant federal case earlier this year that got the NIL rules scrapped, where, yeah, you can sign a contract with the collective before you enroll. So they absolutely could have signed a contract. They didn't start negotiating until August, though. And what's interesting about this, though, is given UNLV's situation where they're 3-0, they've beaten two Big 12 teams, they have Syracuse next week, they could easily win the Mountain West and be a playoff team if they did all this. Well, if it's that important to you, you can come up with the money. And in fact, I think there was a casino owner who did pledge the money if they needed to do it. And they decided not to, which leads me to believe that they didn't necessarily think Matthew Sluka was that critical to this run. They have a guy named Haj Malik Williams who transferred in from the Fighting Campbell University Camels in North Carolina. He was with the starters for all of spring, all of summer, and I think they feel pretty comfortable with him. We'll find out during the game against Fresno State on Saturday whether they're just blowing smoke here or if that's the truth.
All right, let's recap here. So if I'm going to a university, the assistant coach says, hey, $100,000 if you want to come here. I then say, put me in touch with the collective. Let's put it in writing.
Yep.
So you can do that. That's all.
You can do that now. You couldn't do that so when they were engaged in January, you probably couldn't do that. But by March, you could. And this guy was still at Holy Cross in March. He could have done this at any point before he ended up going to UNLV.
Andy Staples covers college football for On3 Sports. You got the big showdown with Alabama and Georgia. And this is a perception game for me with Alabama, Kalen DeBoer. Because now if you beat Kirby Smart, you beat Georgia, Jalen Milroe, if he would happen, the perception is Alabama, okay, we now know why they got that guy. Jalen Milroe, we now know that he's a legitimate Heisman Trophy candidate. How do you think this game plays out, though?
So I have said all week on my show that I think Alabama's going to win this game, that I think this is going to be the one where we see Jalen Milroe's Heisman moment. I got a phone call yesterday from somebody who talked to some coaches who've played some of these teams, and they're like, you're wrong about this. Georgia's going to come in there and smash them. I'm like, no, I have faith here. I do think Alabama is insanely talented. I think Alabama probably the second most talented roster in America behind Ohio State right now. And Georgia has a very talented roster too. Like if Alabama is 2, Georgia's probably 3. But I think Alabama's built really well this season. We've seen them struggle for 3 quarters exactly against USF, and that was when both their starting offensive tackles were out. Both of their starting offensive tackles played against Wisconsin. They looked amazing. They're going to be playing in this game. Georgia's still recovering from losing its best offensive lineman to injury. I think Alabama wins this game.
Comfortably?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. There are no comfortable games against Kirby Smart's Georgia, Dan. I got a trivia question get asked in my mailbag the other day.
But isn't Georgia's favored in this game, right?
Yes.
By
a road favorite at Alabama, which is unheard of.
When's the last time that happened?
It was a long time. I'm trying to remember. There was a Georgia-Alabama game during the Mark Richt era where I think Georgia might have been favored and Alabama just absolutely smashed them. Now, I don't think anybody's getting smashed in this game one way or the other. I think this is going to be a very close game. I'm really excited to see it. My fear for Georgia, Dan, is we have not really seen who scares you down the field for them. Last year was Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers. This year, there's not really been that person. And like Alabama, I can tell you exactly who it is. It's Ryan Williams, who you're going to hear on the broadcast 50 times that he's 17 years old. Makes it no less amazing every time.
Other game that we should keep. How about upset alert? How about Louisville against Notre Dame?
It's crazy that we're even talking about it like it would be an upset. Now, it's a pretty close point spread. I think it's 4.5 Notre Dame favored. Louisville crushed Notre Dame last year. Crushed them. Now, this is at Notre Dame instead of at Louisville, and obviously the teams are a little different because of what happened out of the transfer portal. But Jeff Brom has done a really good job at Louisville, and that was a program that really retooled its roster through the portal this year. And in fact, you haven't even seen it at full strength yet because they have a receiver named Colin Lacey from South Alabama who's been hurt. And we don't even know if he's going to play in this game either. But you've got Tyler Shook at quarterback, who was one of those 5-star guys, was at Oregon. It never worked. He goes to Texas Tech. He was never healthy. Well, he's healthy now. And maybe he fulfills all that promise. I think Louisville probably has the better QB in this matchup.
Really? Okay. I've got Louisville getting 7 against Notre Dame. This according to...
it is early in the week. It was 4.5. So the public disagrees with me, but I appreciate that because I got in on Louisville at 4.5 because I picked Louisville to cover.
How do you think morale is at USC?
Well, the Bear Alexander leaving situation, I think, is one of the deals. So Bear Alexander, for those who don't know, defensive tackle who transferred from Georgia, was considered a huge get at the time, but he's been kind of an issue, threatened to leave in the spring, isn't playing as much as he wanted to, and now he's leaving. I don't think that's going to be a big problem for USC. I think the bigger thing is just figure out, okay, how did we get beat by Michigan when we knew they couldn't throw the ball? I still think that USC is in a better place than they were the last couple of years because I think Lincoln Riley, it feels to me like he has decided defense actually matters. They are practicing in a way that defense matters. You see them making open field tackles. Did they get beat in the Michigan game? Yes. Are they going to play an offensive line as good as Michigan, a back as good as Khalil Mullings? The rest of their schedule? Probably not. So I do think that they're going to be okay. Are they going to beat Penn State? Are they going to win the Big Ten? No, I don't think they're going to do that, but they're going to get better. And I think if you build on that, you got something.
Before I let you go, we brought this up yesterday. Could you see a scenario where team qualifies for the playoffs? Star player says, I'd like to get more money.
Mm-hmm.
Or,
yeah. Oh, that's the whole thing? Oh, I thought they were leaving or, yeah. I mean, that happens now, Dan. That happened all year last year at various teams. So, yeah, you are a free agent every day in this system. And the only way they can make that stop is find a way to make the players employees, get them unionized, and bargain a CBA with them. But here's the thing. This is the part that people don't understand. It's never going to get better than it is now for players. If I'm a player, I'm like, I don't want to be in a union. I don't want a CBA. Let's just keep this money coming because right now there's nothing the schools can do that won't get them sued and that they won't lose in court. They can't make rules that won't get knocked down by the courts. So if I'm a player, I'm like, let's go. However, just bring it on. Now, I do think there are negative consequences for that sort of thing. What you just said, like if I'm an NFL GM and I see that, I don't want that player on my team. I don't want that player anywhere near my team. And I think that hopefully is one of the negative incentives that stops people from doing something like that.
Yeah, but we had Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette not playing in a bowl game, and we're like, oh my God, what's that going to do to their draft stock? It did nothing to their draft stock.
But that was a bowl game.
I know.
There was no championship on the line. So that's the difference. And I think, and I may be wrong. I may be being too idealistic about this. It may be that they are like, hey, you're a businessman. We run a business. Let's go. But I think that would be problematic for me, because at that point you've gotten most of the way. We're talking about playoff teams. So we're probably talking about big time schools where they're getting pretty big money deals. Like it would take a lot of cojones for somebody to try to pull that.
Have a good weekend, Andy. Thanks for joining us as always.
Thank you, Dan.
That's Andy Staples, covers college football for On3 Sports.